want to thank Dr. Cox for inviting me to speak on this forum and what it means to be a CRY Fellow. I'd like to take you through my personal journey with CRY. I'm going to talk about the CRY Fellowship interview in June 2011, followed by my 3 unforgettable years with CRY, the knowledge and experience I've gained, and what I've been up to since CRY, and finally, my advice for the CRY fundraisers and sponsors. So the question really is, why did I apply for the CRY Fellowship? Well, prior to applying, I was aware of some of the work CRY were doing with their previous research fellows. I was actively involved in supporting them in their projects. I did some of the echocardiograms for their research studies, but also for some of the clinic patients. And when you're scanning these patients, you get to spend a bit more time with them, and you build a rapport, and they tell you what happened to them, and the phenomenal support they received from CRY. And it was at this point I understood what it meant to belong to a charity like Cardiac Risk in the Young. And being a young professional in healthcare, I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to make young people with cardiac conditions feel supported, heard and listened to, but also made to feel better. The CRY ethos was strong, preventing sudden cardiac death by identifying inherited cardiac conditions through screening. The enthusiasm and motivation was there to help these young people, and I knew I could do this, starting with research and then growing up to be an expert CRY cardiologist. The one thing that really struck me was this analogy of the double-edged sword, and it came up in the interview. Sudden cardiac death is such an emotive event, and when you're seeing families in clinic relive the days of their event, the sadness, the guilt, it still gives me a lump in my throat when I have to break bad news to them, holding back the tears, supporting them, giving them comfort and reassurance, but also individualizing treatments for these young individuals. I was successfully appointed to the CRY Fellowship, and life with CRY began. So during my time with CRY, I was involved with screenings throughout the UK, and I met some wonderful families who really looked after me whilst I was out there screening. And we have some unforgettable memories, which we often talk about when we meet at the CRY Parliamentary Reception. I did over 83 screenings throughout the UK, and for someone who hadn't ventured much outside the M25, I learned my UK geography really well. I was also involved with seeing referrals in the CRY clinics. I was mainly responsible for the Inherited Cardiac Diseases Clinic at University Hospital Lewisham, and also did the Marfan clinics with Dr. Anne Child here at St George's. My learning curve and knowledge went up exponentially. I got to meet the families in clinic. I built a rapport with them and a connection with them, and at the same time got to meet a few famous people along the way. The research I did looked at the structural changes within young exercising individuals' hearts, and I tested the mechanisms behind this using a pregnancy model. The research generated worldwide global interest, and I presented this work at both international and national conferences, and proudly representing the CRY flag all the way. There were some ups and downs in research too. I really struggled with the women once they had delivered their babies, because they simply just didn't have the time to come to the hospital for their scan, and rightly so, they had a baby to look after. And had it not been for the CRY sponsors supporting me with a mobile echo machine, I don't think I would have been able to complete this project. And again, it's from all the money you have raised that we have been able to use this equipment to finish the project. I was in a position to now go to their homes with my machine and get the final piece of my puzzle. And as a result, I won lots of prizes, including the Peter Hinchcliffe Award, which I'm really proud of even till today. So finally, my 3 years were up, and I couldn't believe how quickly they went. And there have been a few firsts, as Dr. Cox pointed out. I was the first female fellow to be appointed by CRY. I was also the first female CRY fellow to get her PhD. And I was also the first female CRY fellow, I should say, to publish in Circulation Journal, which is quite a difficult journal to publish in, take it from me. So there is a saying that goes, behind every successful man, there is a woman. But behind my success, there has been a fantastic, supportive supervisor, Professor Sharma. Thank you. Don't think I could have done it without you. I hope one day I am able to emulate you with my own research team. So here are just some of the publications achieved with CRY, and I'm very proud of each and every one of these because it's allowed us to progress research with CRY. And you should all be very proud of these publications too. Being a fairly active runner, I hadn't taken part in any competitions, so I thought I'd run the Vitality 10K in support of CRY and managed to raise £760, and also convinced the captain of our ship to run it with me, who raised a substantial amount. Popularity contest. And there is no one, everyone in the CRY organisation is equally loved. Mrs. Cox, I'd like a T-shirt like this, please. So what about life after CRY? So I'm now a successful consultant cardiologist working at Lister Hospital in Stevenage, and I also work at the Royal Brompton in London. I have started an educational training programme for GPs throughout the UK as a new initiative under CRY. We're training these GPs to interpret abnormal ECGs in young individuals, and which would warrant further referral to the Inherited Cardiac Diseases Services. We've covered Manchester and Sheffield so far and received really positive feedback on this, and we plan to do many more throughout the UK. I did my first My Heart session with these groups of youngsters, and I have to say, from my perspective, it was really satisfying, because when we're seeing patients in clinic, we're under time pressure and we may not get to spend as much time with them as we would like, and this is a perfect forum for us to talk about things that matter to them. So I would recommend all our CRY cardiologists and CRY fellows take part in this. I've also been actively involved with the CRY International Conference on an annual basis, and it's a really good conference to attend. I've also mentored some of the current research fellows in their research degrees, guiding them through my own experience. And I've also continued to do some more research with CRY and have published some papers. Finally, my advice to the CRY fundraisers and sponsors: thank you. Please keep going and please don't stop. It's really hard to get competitive funding to do research as cardiology fellows. And CRY have been my life saviour in this. The CRY Fellowship is well sought after. It's a fully funded 3-year programme, which is a rare occurrence. The money you have raised has not only shaped me into what I am today, to see families in clinic, but to also do impactful research through funded equipment and to disseminate guidelines nationwide with a global impact. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, and please keep sponsoring the research programme so that others may also benefit as I have. Thank you very much.